are not existing, which is mapped in red color over here. So that's mainly coming under our area of Arabian Sea as well as Bay of Bengal. So why I highlighted this thing is that we all know that there is a big fishery by the Chinese in the Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea, for targeting these type of squids over here, oceanic squids, which are abundant in the Arabian Sea. It is told that the around 50% of, not 50%, about 90% of this particular fish is found in the Arabian Sea. So the Chinese are coming over here, and their presence has been increased by around 13 times in Indian in our high seas of waters near to our EEZ. So this issue need to be addressed at the earliest. For example, an RFMO, we need to think about an RFMO which is governing the Arabian Sea as well as Bay of Bengal. Then, as I mentioned earlier, about 284 factory vessels of China had been operating in the Indian Ocean region last year. Then, with regard to IUU fishing index, I'm just skipping. India's score is not far behind. Our score is global rank. We have 17th rank out of 152 countries. And yeah, Pac Bay is an important area which we need to concentrate. Why? Because the fishermen from both the states, both Sri Lanka as well as India, are claiming the sovereignty over there. So there are not many incidents of crossing over the IMBL and getting caught by the navies of respective nations. Yeah, India, government of India has taken lot many initiatives under the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana to mainly to concentrate on the fishermen who are mainly concentrating on the waters of other nations or something, to divert their attention to the fish feed culture as well as the cage culture. Then I had mentioned here the importance of seaweed cultivation in the Parkway area. Then Government of India has taken other initiatives like a strengthening of ecotourism, resource sustainability, reviving and strengthening of infrastructure and yeah, farmers' welfare and livelihood support. Yeah, and lastly, I would like to mention a slide over here regarding our institute, Fisheries Survey of India. It's established during 1946, and incidentally, we had celebrated our 75th anniversary last year. It's a Government of India organization. As I mentioned earlier, it's headquartered at Mumbai, and we have 7 operational bases, and we operate 11 survey vessels all around the Indian EEZ to survey the marine fishery resources. And yeah, these are our FSI's charter of work. I'm just skipping all these things. We have our presence all along the Indian coast in Mumbai, Mumbai, Kochi, Chennai, Visakhapatnam, and Port Blair, and we operate 11 ocean-going vessels to survey the marine wealth of Indian EEZ. And we employ different types of fishing activities and to estimate and monitor the fish catch in the Indian seas. And I would like to thank the organizers and participants of this seminar. I would like to thank the Department of Fisheries and our DG at Mumbai, and to Dr. Sanjay Pandey at the Ministry for their kind cooperation and help. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Sujo Varghese, that was an absolutely fantastic presentation. You have tried to cover the canvas in the available time, and the information that you have shared with us is of tremendous value to me personally and to my friends who are on the webinar today. And I'm sure across the spectrum it will make its presence felt. Thank you very much. There's one thing that I would like to leave for the question and answer session. What is the threats and challenges you see in your particular field from, say, inimical interests, both state and non-state in your own area of activity? That, if you agree, we will keep it to the question answer session. So thank you very much for your presentation. It was very, very educative to all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to another interesting aspect of our webinar today. I have the pleasure to introduce Commodore Venugopal Vengalil. I have known him for the last 3 years when we participated in a webinar on China, and also that he has been, I have read his articles with great interest. Not only for the facts that he conveys, but also the reason that he gives us. So Venu, we are happy to and delighted to have you on today's webinar as the second speaker at the session number 4. And you are going to talk to us on a subject of significance and importance. And with all your 3 decades plus experience in the Navy, holding different appointments, and I'm confident that our young friends who are on the webinar today will take home a lot from what you have to give them by way of Guru Dakshina. With these few words, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Hebleka, sir. Can I share my presentation, please?
Venkatesh, you're on.
Venkatesh, yeah, he is sharing your. Sir, you can share from your side. If there is a problem, we will share from our side. Sir, are you trying to share?
Yeah, I'm trying to share.
Yeah. Okay, if we share, you will not be able to move slides.
Oh.
You have to move slides, yeah. You want us to share the slides?
I think that'll be better. There's some kind of a confusion here.
Yeah. Venkatesh, yeah.
Can you hand over the control to me after that? No.
No, it's difficult, sir. It's not.
Okay, fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, please go ahead. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good morning, everyone. At the outset, let me thank Commodore Uday Rao, sir, Professor Hebleka, sir, Professor Chengappa, whom I have been interacting with on many occasions, and also the Institute of Contemporary Studies, Bangalore, and Mangalore University, to give me the opportunity to talk on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. I will be touching upon the general definitions. HADR will be an abbreviation that I will use in the next 20 minutes. Global context, the Oslo Guidelines, Disaster Management Organization in India, the Indian Tsunami Warning System, the types of assistance provided, attributes of the Navy for HADR, India's role in HADR ROPS. Next slide, please. Next, please. HADR and Sagar, Indian Navy's HADR capabilities, challenges as a net security provider, sea lift and expeditionary operations, national hospital ship, and a brief conclusion. I will move on to the first slide, the disaster relief. It's a very simple explanation, and this is the best definition that I can get for you. Disaster relief or emergency management is the process of responding to a catastrophic situation, providing humanitarian aid to persons and communities who have suffered from some form of disaster. Next, please. Next, please. Again, another self-explanatory slide. Humanitarian aid is material and logistics assistance to to people who need help. It is usually a short-term help until the long-term help by the government and other institutions replaces it. Among the people in need are the homeless refugees and victims of natural disasters, wars, and famines. These are the general definitions of the term and its meaning. When we add the term sea to it, the meaning is the same. However, the medium is linked to water. The subject is vast, and therefore there are many regions in the world which are prone to disaster. However, I will limit my focus onto the Indian Ocean region, which is of interest to us. This region is particularly vulnerable to a number of natural disasters that include floods, cyclones, tsunamis, droughts, and earthquakes. HADR at sea is generally the domain of the Navy, the Coast Guard, and allied units. I'm sure the audience will recall the tsunami of 2004, which is an ideal example of a HADR operation at sea. Such type of disasters can never be predicted accurately, although modern tsunami warning systems are able to provide early warnings to a certain extent. In a global context, next slide. Humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operations have attracted the attention of the global community in recent years. Building capabilities, interoperability, and a conceptual framework for participation in these operations is gaining increasing urgency among global community in general and Indian policymakers in particular. The Indian Armed Forces have a wide experience of disaster relief operations both at home and abroad. Due to its size, geographical location, and vulnerability to disasters, India has kept its forces ready to render assistance at short notice. India has also partnered the global community in providing relief in affected regions. As you all know, India occupies an important geostrategic position in the Indian Ocean region to take on the role of a net security provider and a first responder. Both these terms I will explain later in my presentation. Although there is an international consensus with respect to disaster relief, there are divergent views regarding humanitarian assistance. The next slide will show you the Oslo Guidelines. The use of foreign military and civil defense assets in disaster relief state that humanitarian assistance must be provided with the core principles of humanity, impartiality, and neutrality, and must also fully respect the sovereignty of states. It clearly says that any assistance should be based on a request from the government of the affected country. You all may recall the severe earthquake that Pakistan encountered a couple of years back. Although India offered to render assistance, Pakistan refused to accept it. Before going into the specifics of HADR, I'll briefly touch upon the disaster management organization in India. The 2004 tsunami was a wake-up call for all of us in the region, following which the NDMA was set up through the Disaster Management Act of 2005. Headed by the Prime Minister, it is the apex body for disaster management in India. Under the NDMA, you have the NDRF. NDRF is an Indian specialized force constituted for the purpose of special response to a threatening disaster situation or disaster. Next slide will talk about the tsunami warning system in India. The Indian Tsunami Early Warning Center, ITEWC, was established in 2007 at Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, Hyderabad. It is under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, and it is a national authority which will predict a tsunami in the region. The region, I mean the Indian Ocean region, which is mostly of interest to us. HADR at sea. Now let us examine the specific instances of HADR operations at sea. They are the aftermath of a natural calamity like earthquake or tsunami in the region. Also, maritime terrorism, evacuation of nationals from a neighboring state due to the effect of a pandemic, revolt, war, or any other emergency. Next slide will show you the types of assistance that is provided. Firstly, communication is always the first catastrophe which happens with a natural disaster. Restoration of communication is the primary focus of any disaster relief mission. Initial assistance assessment, that is normally done by helicopter survey to see as to which area is affected and how best relief can best be provided by sea. Medical aid and setting of medical camps do not need any special mention. Transportation of relief materials, transportation like of inflatable watercrafts, vehicles, helicopters for movement within the affected area, establishment of relief camps. The next slide will again continue with some more assistance. Please move on to the next slide. The next slide, please. Sorry. Go back, please. Please go back. Construction and repair of roads and bridges, self-explanatory. Maintenance of essential services. Evacuation of affected population to safer places. Diving assistance to civil authorities. Liaison with international agencies like Red Cross. Liaison with local authorities. Now I'll move to the attributes of the Navy for HADR operations. Can you move on to the next slide, please? Access.
Sorry, sir. Yes.
Yeah, fine. This is correct. As you all know, 2/3 of the global mass is water. And so accessibility by the Navy is always the foremost in any kind of disasters within our region as a matter of fact. A naval force is capable of moving at high speeds, 300 to 500 nautical miles in 24 hours. So mobility is a very important factor which makes Navy an important component of a disaster relief mission. Sustenance. Maritime forces have integral logistical support. They are able to be at sea, all with integrated provision, with fuel, with all supplies. Depending upon the size of ship, the endurance will differ, but in general, the ships that are deployed for these missions have good endurance of between 20 to 30 days. Ability to apply maritime power at long distance from home base. If you all recall the tsunami, ships were deployed even from Visakhapatnam and Bombay, in addition to the ships at Cochin for immediate assistance for the tsunami. So the maritime power is such that ships can move from the home base and remain in the area of operations for a considerable amount of time as long as the disaster relief is required. Resilience. If there's an earthquake, there are chances of aftershocks. Naval ships are constructed in such a way that they can withstand all kinds of minor shocks and be in the area to complete the mission. India's role in the HADR. Next slide, please. India's geostrategic location adjacent to one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world makes it an important maritime nation. As a maritime nation with a well-balanced Navy and Coast Guard, we have resources to meet the challenges of being the first responder to emergencies. Moreover, the seas are the best medium for India to convey goodwill and project the capability as a responsible nation. In other words, HADR is a form of diplomacy too. This operations of ours, which I have shown on the slide, will indicate, I've only taken a few examples to show. Basically, the evacuation during the Gulf War from Kuwait, the Navy played a small role in it. Operation Rahat, Yemen crisis, yes, the Navy played a big role. Safe homecoming, Libyan civil war, Lebanon war, Vande Bharat mission. That's the last one in 2020 when naval ships were extensively deployed to all over the region to evacuate Indian personnel back to the homeland. The tsunami in 2004, the next slide will show you that 32 naval ships, 7 aircraft, and 20 helicopters were part of the rescue, relief, and reconstruction missions that covered the states of Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Andaman Nicobar Islands in our country, and abroad, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Indonesia. Given the proximity and immediate response, India's maritime assets were the first to reach the nations in distress. This reaction not only demonstrated India's ability to render a fast and capable response, but also reinforced the fact that India's armed forces are a valuable asset always. Moving on to the next slide. Addressing non-traditional threats in the Indian Ocean region is one of Indian Navy's most prominent roles. Over the past decade, higher instances of natural disasters and regional instabilities have necessitated increased deployment of Indian Navy for undertaking HADR non-combat evacuation. Non-combat evacuation is the last what I mentioned, that is Vande Bharat mission is a non-combat evacuation. And of course, search and rescue operations. It may be interesting to note that the IOR is the Indian Ocean region, and its interland form the locus of about 70% of world's natural disasters resulting from earthquakes, cyclones, tsunamis, and floods. By assuming an important role, the Indian Navy continues to be in the forefront of HADR operations in coastal areas, both in India and in the immediate neighborhood. HADR capability also promotes our ability to coordinate between regional navies for combined HADR operations. Towards this end, as a part of Indian Ocean Naval Symposium initiatives in 2014, the Indian Navy assumed the chair of the IONS Working Group on HADR and subsequently formulated a way ahead for developing coordinated HADR operations response amongst IOR navies. What makes it possible for IN to be the first responder? But the next slide will show you that. What makes it possible for the IN to be the first responder is its state of operational readiness. Indian naval ships on operational deployment are mandated to carry additional HADR kits for such possible eventualities, which makes them always prepared for deployment in short notice. This has been possible due to the mission-based deployment concept followed by the Indian Navy since 2017, when mission-deployed ships are prepared to carry out anti-piracy operations in Indian Ocean and also provide humanitarian assistance when directed. Such an arrangement gives the flexibility and speed to render assistance in the quickest possible time in our area of interest. A correlation between HADR and SAGAR. The next slide will indicate to you the correlation between HADR and SAGAR. As you all know, SAGAR, which stands for Security and Growth for All in the region. SAGAR has distinct and interdependent elements such as deepening economic and security cooperation in the littorals, enhancing capacities to safeguard land and maritime territories, working towards sustainable regional development, blue economy, it was covered during the last presentation, and promoting collective action to deal with non-traditional threats like natural disasters, piracy, and terrorism. While each of these elements of SAGAR require equal attention, developing an effective regional response mechanism to address the humanitarian crisis and disasters is one of the most visible elements in India's evolving Indian Ocean strategy without distinguishing between natural or man-made disasters. Moving on to Indian Navy's HADR capabilities. Drawing on the lessons learned, and in order to bolster HADR capabilities, the Indian Navy acquired Landing Platform Dock from the US in 2007. This was in light of the inability of the amphibious ships to reach the debris littered shores during tsunami. The LPD INS Jalshawa is capable of carrying 6 helicopters. Our amphibious capability is being again strengthened by induction of more LSTL ships. There are different viewpoints on India's growing amphibious assets across the world. However, the use of the military, especially the Navy, can be seen in two clear ways. Firstly, it can be viewed as a positive signal to the international community that India is willing to put aside its political differences while rendering humanitarian aid. Secondly, it expresses India's belief not only in its own capabilities, but also the fact that it has achieved a certain level of power whereby it has an important role to play in the security of the Indian Ocean region. Moving on to the next slide, we'll show you the next our role as a net security provider. Net security provider and HADR are linked in many ways. The role of net security provider signifies the responsibility of a nation to provide maritime security in a region by addressing common. In doing so, will fill in the gaps of regional states and not act as the regional police. Specifically, it encompasses 4 different activities. That's capacity building, military diplomacy, military assistance, and direct deployment of military forces. Now, all these cannot be done if we do not have the adequate resources. Move to the next slide, please. We have a deficiency in LPD and LST large. As you all know, a medium LPD has a range of 8,000 nautical miles at 20 knots. And it's got an ability to carry 7 days stock of relief material, food provisions, clothing, emergency medical kit. Also, these LPDs can act as a sea bridge and air bridge for smooth conduct of relief operations, because the ports could be damaged or the landing sites could be damaged due to the disaster. When you have a air cushion vessel or you have a helicopter, you are able to bridge that gap. That's what is meant by a sea bridge and air bridge. Moving on to the National Hospital Ship. The name sounds very political to me, to be very frank. This is basically being referred to a hospital ship. We do not have a dedicated hospital ship to meet wartime and peacetime operational requirements. Normally, cadet training ships and survey ships are modified during operations to fulfill this role. This arrangement has got its own shortcomings. Accordingly, the Government of India has sanctioned construction of a national hospital ship, which is a 500-bed hospital. Likely that the construction will take place in the Indian shipyard. At the moment, further details are not available. What I'm showing on the slide is the US naval ship Mercy and the sister ship Comfort. Can you move on to the next slide, please? This is the interior of US naval ship Mercy. Next slide. Next slide. This is how Mercy was modified to meet the COVID requirements in the US. Both Mercy and Comfort were deployed in the east and west coast of US because of the overflow of patients in the land hospitals. However, there were many problems which were faced, including command and control, understanding the civil requirement by the naval ship, the fact is that there were communication failure, and all these things actually proved one fact, that you can have a hospital ship which meets the wartime conditions, but it may not suit the requirement of peacetime, like a pandemic. I hope the QRs which are being defined for our naval or our national hospital ship meets both the requirements, because the term national would indicate a dual role, that is in wartime as well as in peacetime. I will briefly conclude now. Conclusion. Next slide, please. I would like to state that HADR is one of the most important roles of a Navy in peacetime. In addition to building resources to meet contingencies and ensure preparedness, there is also a need to engage with regional navies to develop interoperability and to consolidate each other's strong points. The overall aim should be to provide relief at the shortest possible time and to ensure that human lives are saved and protected. In this context, regular tabletop exercises within the region are to be conducted at all levels for refining operating procedures and to arrive at a common grid. Thank you so much. I'm ready to answer any questions, please.
Thank you, Venu. I think you have covered the subject in a very lucid and cogent manner. You have been able to put across some of the developments in a manner that it could be understood by most of the youngsters who are on the screen, and also adds knowledge to those others who are also on the screen, the seniors and others. I think the spectrum has been well covered, and I think I can go back home satisfied that I've had 20, 25 minutes of window into how India conducts its HADR operations. Since we are running behind time, what I will do is I will request you to wait till the end of Ravindranath's presentation, and then we'll take the question and answers together. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite Dr. Ravindranathan from the Manipal Academy of Higher Education. Manipal, he is currently the head of the Department of Geopolitics and International Relations at MAHE. He has done his MPhil and PhD from the Center of Latin American Studies at JNU. And in fact, I think both Ravindranathan and I have something in common. I did my Japanese language studies at JNU in 1973, and I was a visiting professor at his department from 2011 to 2016. Dr. Ravindranath is going to speak to us on the India's Maritime Domain Awareness Program and critical assessment. So as far as today's session is concerned, we have seen an aspect going from a civilian research organization on fisheries. We are looking at what Commodore Venugopal has mentioned from a practitioner's point of view. And now we would like to hear what an important message we are going to get from Dr. Ravindranath. Dr. Ravindranath, we are running short of time. I request you to give us your time 15 minutes so that we could spend some more time on question and answers. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you, Heblika sir. Good morning to one and all, and greetings from Department of Geopolitics and International Relations. Thank you to a big thanks to Professor Jayaraj Amin for inviting me and connecting me with continuing the connection with the department on this maritime issues and programs. We had an association in 2019, I believe, before COVID, and thanks for the continuation of the program. Thank you, sir, and thank you to all the organizers. And maritime domain awareness is already, I'm sure, in the yesterday's sessions, most of the sessions, it was briefly discussed by many practitioners. I'm trying to make it from the academic point of view, and how it is important for dealing the threats and vulnerabilities in the Indian Ocean as well as Indo-Pacific region. Because now we are in the juncture where I don't have the PPT. I'm going for the extempore. Is it okay? I believe. How the maritime domain awareness is important to deal the threats and the challenges appearing from the maritime realm, and what is the importance of MDA in India's maritime program. So I will start with a small quote from one of the major statisticians of India, that is K. Subramaniam, who started the IDSA and one of the most prolific writer. And he's saying that in his time, the century, the knowledge will overpower weapons that act as the currency of power, helping to determine the international hierarchy. So he's saying knowledge, create as much knowledge about what you are and what you have and what you are aiming for. So this is what we can see from another person, very important strategician. With strategic studies, we start with this name, Sun Tzu, a Chinese, but some of the observations are very relevant in this context. A nation must have foreknowledge to the defeat, to defeat the enemy and achieve the nation's goals. So foreknowledge is the most important word here, which is which allows the country to prepare themselves to deal with the challenges appearing from various issues. Threats and vulnerabilities are always there, but what are they and how they are emerging and how we can deal with them? That was first of all we have to understand that. Then only we can find solutions for each and every one. So maritime domain awareness is more about understanding our capabilities, India's capabilities, India's possibilities, and to finding a way for dealing each and every issues. So in connected with the MDA, it can be said that understanding the threats from maritime domain from the state and non-state actors to understand one's water can include the basic elements as well as salinity, temperature, vulnerability, strength, etc., and maritime environment as a whole. So it's a wide gamut of issues. It's not just one or two issues. It is a huge area, which is MDA is. I don't have that much time to explain detail, but I will try to make it as simple as and as quick as possible. It is divided into two segments. We can put it into surface water domain awareness and underwater domain awareness. I will come to that later. Before that, let me go to the sources also, from where we can find more details about the Maritime Domain Awareness Program of India. I'm not going back to deep history because we don't have that much time and detail, and but definitely the post-independence India started its naval program in a different way, and we faced a lot of challenges. And there are 6 books which I can suggest to read, especially all 6 are coming from the Indian Navy side, which is talking about details of the naval programs or the naval policies or India's naval policy, and what are the challenges each time we are facing and how we were dealing with those things. So the first one is the Under 2 Ensigns, that is by Satyendra Singh in 1986. This is providing the historical background of Indian Navy and in 1945 to 50. Then the second work is Blueprint to Blue Water, that is 51 to 65, also done by Satyendra Singh. And then the 3 books in the continuation, that is Transition to Triumph, History of Indian Navy, Transition to Eminence, the Indian Navy 1976 to 1990, and Transition to Guardianship, the Indian Navy 1991 to 2000. This is both 3 of them are done by Hiranandani. That is Mohanlal Gulab Mohanlal Hiranandani in different time. That is 2000, 2005, and 2009. Then the last one in this segment, which comes as the Blue Water Ahoy, the Indian Navy 2001 to 2010, done by Vice Admiral Anup Singh in 2018. So we will get if you go through this work together, I'm sure you will get a very good idea about what are the initiatives Indian Navy has taken to address the challenges appearing from the maritime realm. So, what are the major challenges for India or from the maritime realm? And we can categorize into 2 segments. That is, one is from the state actors, and another one is from the non-state actors. State actors, definitely, it is when we talk about state actors, it will be first is China. How China is engaging in the Indian Ocean region. China is an extra-regional power as per the definition of the countries in the Indian Ocean region. Indian Ocean is a closed ocean, which has a certain very particular entry points, and beyond that, everything is outsider. So China is using Indian Ocean for their activities, but they want to expand their presence in different ways in the last 20 years. So this is what makes China as a very important component here. A threat, actually it is coming as a threat because of their doings in the Indian Ocean region. So China's interests, maritime interests, principal interests are lying in the Pacific Ocean with the tensions rumbling around. Their major issues are Taiwan crisis and Taiwan related issues are there. But apart from that, their dependency on Indian Ocean region, that makes them force them to move further, move deeper into the Indian Ocean activities and trying to get engage with any certain incident which appears in the Indian Ocean region. The best example is when piracy was in the high pitch. China was trying to bring their submarines, nuclear submarines to anti-piracy operations. This is something which is very ridiculous because everyone knows that it is not for anti-piracy operations. Submarines are not used. China is using. So we have to find the intentions. What are the things behind the wall? So we can anticipate that they want to test, they want to signal, they want to know what is the what are the details of Indian Ocean waters. So a lot of things are there in that case. We can find out. And second threat is coming from the neighbor state, Pakistan. We had already one incident which may become the eye opener for us. When we compare the modern day MDA, that is Maritime Domain Awareness Program, the 9/11 actually created the initiative for US MDA program. Similarly, 2611 created, forced India to move faster into the to address the challenges and vulnerabilities on maritime domain. So when Pakistan appears, then India is actually sandwiching between the Chinese interest and Pakistani interest. So how to counter them? So we have to understand what are their interests, what are their activities, how they are seeing how they are formulating their policies. All those things has to be addressed. Sri Lanka is also another challenge. It is relationship with Sri Lanka is not bad, but they are forced to follow certain restrictions at present. But their activities in the last 2 decades, especially 1.5 decade, if you take their close interaction with China, which gave which provided a possibility for making inroads into Indian Ocean region for China. So that is one thing which is worrying for India, which is Chinese policy of encirclement is very much present, and Sri Lanka become one of the major component in that process. Then there are countries like small countries like Bangladesh, Myanmar, Mauritius, Maldives, all are part of the this component, the encirclement policy component, where China is using them to encircle the major country like India and show their presence and trying to establish their continuous presence actually. So state actors, then we can consider, we have to, because short term, if you change, categorize the threats into 3 types. That is short term, medium term, and long term threats. Immediate threats are like Pakistan is there. Medium term, we can find out the challenges coming from China. And long term threats, we have to consider the interests of the big power like US and also a certain extent France. France is also considered as an Indian Ocean country because they have some stake in the Indian Ocean region. By some island countries are very much closely working with France, and their colonial connection is still alive. So, and Britain also we have to consider in this category. Then what are the other threats? Threats are coming from the non-state actors. That is maritime terrorism, because there are a lot of incidents happened in the Indian Ocean related to terrorism. ISS call was the major eye opener for everyone. Before 9/11, this was happened in 2000 itself. It happened, and there was another French ship, French oil tanker, I think, MV Limburg, was attacked. Al Qaeda was very much present in the Yemen side of the Indian Ocean, and then 2611 is the most important example of the maritime terrorism, which it has come through, the terrorism has come through the water for the first time and created havoc in the country. So that is one aspect we have to keep in mind. Then piracy. Piracy, the Somalian piracy, which affected the globalization badly. Globalization started in 1990. Piracy was appeared in the end of 1990s and beginning of 2000s. Then we can see that it is appearing as a major challenge, and it forced the countries world over to come together and fight against the terrorism. Against the piracy. And this was utilized by, as I said earlier, China. Then trafficking and illegal activities, that includes a lot of drug peddling, arms trafficking, human trafficking, smuggling, all these, and all these are very much connected to the terrorism, maritime terrorism also, money laundering. All these aspects are very connected. Then another one is environment issues. That is also a non-state actor based challenge, which is climate change, which we are facing it at present. The patterns of weather change and the change of the pattern of rainfall, then the drought. All these things are forcing because the population concentration is always in the coastal side, all countries. So when the sea rise, the water level of the seas are rising, and many of the coastal areas are submerging in the water. That means the people are forced to evacuate it and forced to put in different places, and that is a big financial burden also for the state. So that is cyclones and tsunami. All these things are appearing one by one. I think from my own observation in the last 10 years or 20, 30 years of my life, I can say Arabian Sea was comparatively much silent or very calm and quiet. But in the last 5-year experience, we can see continuous appearance of cyclones and heavy rainfalls and all. How it is creating trouble for the coastal region is very visible.
Ravi, you have 2 minutes more, please.
Oh, then I have to wind up soon. Sorry. So what are the, I'm not getting into the threats emanating from the underwater. Awareness program of India, that is the Maritime Awareness Program of India. We have a lot of opportunities and concerns where the economic aspects, with rich mineral, the international shipping lines and all those things are involved in. So any threat and any problem appears to any of this aspect, economic, mineral extraction, international shipping, port and shipping, then fishing and aquaculture, tourism, any of these things are making the region vulnerable and India more vulnerable. So what are the maritime interests of India? If we want to appear as if we want to aim, India want to become a major player as of the security provider of Indian Ocean region. Whether it is, we were earlier days, we were more concerned about protecting our own coastal regions than anything. But now it is, we want to get into the larger level where we can expand our reach to as a provider of security to the entire Indian Ocean region. Now the things are changing again in the background of Asia, Indo-Pacific concept. Things are further changing. So what are the major what are the major changes which we made? There are, in the case of maritime domain awareness, we have after 26/11 attack, India focused on maritime domain, changed drastically. The phased approach has taken to build effective maritime domain awareness. Phase 1 focused on integrating central and state forces, that is Indian Navy, Coast Guard, Maritime Police, and other agencies to monitor the activities during the coast, along the coast and beyond. And second phase was focused on setting up the institutions like National Command Control Communication and Intelligence Network, that is NC3I, sorry. So this was an arrangement which we made, and National Maritime Domain Awareness Project is to coordinate all these programs. And we also come out with NMDA, that is the Information Management and Analysis Center of IMAC Center, which was renamed as the National Maritime Domain Awareness Project, and which made a lot of changes in the approaches. And another one is earlier the speaker mentioned it. In Information Fusion Center for Indian Ocean region, which is monitoring the development, the movements in the Indian Ocean region properly in real time, and preparing all the related forces to address the challenges appearing from the maritime realm. So if I am permitted to go little further, then only I can go for what are the major aspects which we made in the as part of the technological aspects, which is part of the MDA awareness. Otherwise, I can move on to the capabilities and cooperations, where India is very much closely working along with the United States in many aspects. There are some programs like Communication and Information Security Memorandum of Agreement, SMOA, and Logistics Exchange and Cooperation Agreement, LIMOA, and Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement called BECA. So there are programs are already there, and how we are using the technology, especially the space sensors, and using these radar systems, and DRDO, how is using coordinating with the ISRO to use synthetic aperture radar, and GSAT facilities and NAVIC, and all those things are also included in my work. And aerial capabilities, especially with the long and medium range surveillance, maritime reconnaissance, as part of the naval aviation missions, has been the western and eastern seaboards. So we have a series of aircrafts which can provide the intelligence details of whatever happening in the Indian Ocean region, especially Illusion IL-38, Boeing P-81, Dornier 28, and there are many aircrafts and many facilities are there. What are the challenges? I will finish it with one minute, sir. Major challenges, it's a wide area to cover. Our maritime engagement is not with just the coastal region. We have a huge area of economic zone, special economic zone, and continental shelf region, where whether we have the sufficient capability to protect as what we think. That is major concern. There are occasions where it was breached by other states. So I will address those things in the question answer session if some question comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. I think you have added focus to an important subject we call maritime domain awareness. It is a multidisciplinary subject which requires the participation of not only experts like you, but others, practitioners, and people who have been in this field for a long period of time. MDA, as part of our discourse, is not a new program, but as we discuss more, I think we will have a lot many things that can be brought to the table in the form of discussions and webinars and seminars. So thank you very much. Before I close, I just checked the chat box. There are 3 questions, 2 addressed to Mr. Shafikar and one from Commander Anand Kumar. Both or the 3 are addressed to Dr. Sujo Varghese. And the first one is, what is the extent of IW fishing in our EEZ? Is from Commander Anand Kumar to Dr. Varghese.
Thank you very much for that interesting question, sir. But I must say that the quantification of IUU activities in Indian waters especially by our own fishermen, had not been quantified. It's very vast area of the interest of the fishermen as well as the government agencies engaged who are managing the fishery resources over here. The allocation of work further complicates this type of quantification and all. For example, it's not the full right of government of India, as well as it's not the full right of full responsibility, in fact, of the state governments, since the allocation of responsibilities has been as concerned. So I cannot answer the properly. I mean, to a definite answer, I cannot provide how much IUU activities are happening in our waters. Thank you.
There are two questions from Mr. Shakekar to you, to Dr. Varghese. One is both have in the Chinese context. One is, he says, if IW is only about fishery resources under national jurisdiction, then how to prevent plundering of the same in the high seas? Chinese trawlers carry out fishing just outside our EEZ. And the next question is 3% negative growth in our marine fisheries. How Chinese are able to make it profitable fishing off our EEZ after traveling thousands of miles? So over to you, Dr. Varghese.
Yeah, I fear I haven't captured both the questions properly, but what I could understand is that whether Chinese Chinese fishery in the high seas, which is projected now, are affecting the fishery resources of our waters. Yeah, we can definitely say that almost all the fishery which is presently there in the high seas are straddling stock. That means these stocks are migrating between high sea as well as in the EEZ. So if the catch is more in high seas, that is going to definitely affect our stocks also, in our EEZ also. So we need to have some mechanism to address this type of large scale fishery by fishery for, so it is named as squid fishery, but we all know that it's not only confining to the squid fishery, as they are catching other resources also like tuna and all. So unless and until we have a mid-sea boarding system, high sea boarding system, we cannot say which type of fishery they are targeting and which type of resources they are harvesting from the high seas of Indian Ocean region. So we should have a high sea boarding system. Then only we can monitor the catch as well as the increased presence of Chinese fishing vessels in the Arabian Sea. Then a second question I could understand is that why there is a negative growth in the marine fish landings. We can very well say that of course last year and during 2019, one of the main attributes for that decrease in catch was the pandemic, which has crippled us. The Indian marine fisheries sector also had been highly impacted due to that pandemic. Then not only that, the reason that is one of the main reason. Then it is told that of course some of the fishery, there are some local areas where there is the catch is more than what the potential is. So we cannot call it overfishing, but there are some signs of overfishing also are appearing in selected pockets. So that also can be kind of attributed to the decrease in growth rate. Then, as one of the other panelists mentioned, the climate change also, it's not a wild thought. So it's happening to our waters. It's happening to our fishery resources. It's affecting us each and every field. So that also need to be addressed. Then only we can contain or the ill effects of this type of this type of the threats. I think I had covered the questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Verghese. I hope both Mr. Shafikar and Commander Anand Kumar are satisfied with the response. There is one question by Vineet Krishnan. It is general. Vineet, we are run out of time. I suggest you come back in the next 1 or 2 sessions where you will have a ready-made answer to your queries. I would like to thank my panelists, consisting of Dr. Verghese, Commodore Venu, and Dr. Ravi for being with us today and sharing both their experience and expertise on the subject. And we hope that the people who are on the other side had a glimpse of what the subject was. And I want to say a big thank you to all of them. And with this, I hand over the proceedings to Dr. Jairam. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair and the panelists. My colleague, Dr. Dayanand Naik will continue. Dayanand Naik.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Dear ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. It gives me an immense pleasure to welcome all the participants, delegates, students in and out of the campus on behalf of the Mangalore University and the Center for Contemporary Studies, Bangalore, ICSB. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving towards fifth plenary session, which is going to deal with maritime resource and security. We have 3 eminent personalities like Professor V.N. Hadr, former chair, Indian Ocean Studies, IORE in Mauritius, will deal with blue economy. Professor P.V. Rao, Nalsar, Hyderabad, will deal with maritime infrastructure projects, Sagarmala. And we have third panelist, Dr. Jose Paul, former Port, Mumbai, former chairman, Marmagoa Port Trust, Goa, and adjunct professor of Maritime Studies, Indian Maritime University, Chennai. He is going to give his vibrant input to enhancing efficiency of major ports. Dear friends, the entire session would be chaired by Maritime Luminary Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, previous M, AVSM, NM and Bar, former FOC in charge, West. Ladies and gentlemen, Sinha is a former chief of Integrated Defense Staff and a member of the Defense Acquisition Council between 2010 and 2012. During this tenure, yes. During this tenure, the long-term integrated perspective plan was compiled and approved by the government of India. Admiral Sinha is a naval aviator of fighter stream and has flown over 2,700 hours. He steered aviation acquisition as the Assistant Chief of Naval Staff and later held command of the Western Fleet. Admiral Sinha retired in 2014 as the Commander-in-Chief of the Western Naval Command based at Mumbai with the additional responsibility of Commander-in-Chief Coastal Security, Western Seaboard. He holds an MSc and MPhil in Defense and Strategic Studies from the University of Madras. Having this eminent personality, Vice Admiral Sinha, I kindly request you on behalf of Mangalore University and ICSB to restore the chair of this panel session. Now over to Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, please.
Thank you very much, and Jai Hind, everybody. Thank you, Mangalore University and the Institute for Contemporary Studies, Bangalore. I hope I am audible.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, then. And my very special thanks to my dear friend and my senior, Commodore Uday Rao, for the invite for this very important event. I heard the inaugural session where my guru, Professor Nalapat, opened the entire canvas, and it was followed by the very, shall I say, instructive, brilliant presentation by Commodore Uday Rao on the overview of the India's maritime security.
Now
Now we are short on time, and therefore let me just immediately get to business. We are going to deliberate the marine resources and security as to how these resources actually call for security or add to the security of a country. And we have three very exceptional domain specialists. We just heard the bio of Professor V.N. Atri, former chair of IORA. He will speak on blue economy. And this will be followed by a talk by Professor P.V. Rao, NALSAR Hyderabad, speaking on the maritime infrastructure, particular reference to Sagarmala. And our third speaker will be another very renowned professional, Dr. Jose Paul, who has been officiating chairman of JNPT, and thereafter chairman of Mormugao Port Trust at Goa. He is now the adjunct professor at the Indian Maritime University in Chennai. They will all speak for roughly, esteemed speakers will speak for probably 15 or 18 minutes each in the sequence as given in the program. And thereafter we can take on Q&A depending upon, we are already behind time. But before I hand over to my first speaker, let me just flag a few issues on maritime resources and security. When we talk about maritime capability of a country, it includes plethora of issues, much more than just the security of sea lanes of communication. It encompasses the trade and commerce, blue economy, the port infrastructure, hinterland infrastructure for passage of public goods, handling of trade, facilitation services, maritime awareness of citizens, safety services, search and rescue, subsurface maritime resources, and their sustainable exploitation. It is very important. Marine pollution, climate issues, shipbuilding ability, etc., etc. It is intertwined with each other and is an important component of nation's economy. And therefore, all these attributes contribute to the maritime prowess of a country and therefore its security. For the students, I will suggest that this is a very important nuance which you must understand when you're pursuing the Indo-Pacific Maritime Studies. With that, let me first invite Professor Atri to take on the podium and speak about the blue economy. Professor Atri, sir.
Thank you. Hello.
Yeah,
Hello,
go ahead,
sir.
sir. You are audible. Yes.
Okay. First of all, let me thank to the organizer and especially Comrade Uday for inviting me to participate in this webinar, which is very important in terms of maritime safety and security and the blue economy. So I will be speaking on the blue economy in India. But before that, let me congratulate all of you a happy World Ocean Day. 8th June is the happy World Ocean Day to all. And the theme of this year Ocean Day, World Ocean Day, is to revitalization, collective action for the ocean to increase awareness during among your friends and family to protect and preserve the mother nature in the ocean. So this is the theme of the today's World Ocean Day, and I am speaking about it because the university students are there and they need to be involved in the blue economy for the future of the Earth planet and to achieve sustainable development across the regions. So that is basically the starting point. And then the another thing which is important, in the month of June, on 27th June till 1st July 2022 in Lisbon, Portugal, the UN Second Ocean Conference is being organized. The first was organized in 2017. in New York, USA. And basically, why we are interested in the ocean economy or the blue economy or the marine economy or the, you see, there are different ways, innovative economy. So basically, we are interested in the blue economy or the sustainable blue economy, rather, I say, because the sustainable blue economy includes oceans, seas, rivers, and even lakes in the national boundaries and outside the national boundaries. And this has to provide the livelihood to the people across the world. So at present, more than 237 million people directly get their employment from the ocean related jobs, and the share of the ocean GVA, that is the gross value addition, is around, you see, 2.5 US trillion dollar, and likely to be 3 trillion US dollar in few years. And then 90% of the trade is through ocean. So that basically tells us the importance of the ocean. Not only that, oceans regulate our climate, and climate basically is the important thing. And I have been listening the speakers focusing on the climate change and all that. Then basically, I was there in IORA for 6 years as chair in Indian Ocean Studies. And that is why in my lecture, let me first brief you what IORA has been doing with regard to the blue economy and how the member states of IORA, of which India is you see, member since beginning. Rather, basically, India plays a very important role in setting up the IORA in 1997, and it was discussed during the former late president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, in New Delhi, and then soon after his visit, there was the Indian Ocean Initiative Group. Meetings were held in Mauritius in 1996, 1995, and on March 7, 1997, 14 countries started this intergovernmental organization. Now, the present membership of the IORA is 23, and very recently, in December 2020, France has joined as a member state of IORA. Earlier, France was the dialogue partner of IORA. So there are 10 dialogue partners of IORA, and very recently, Russian Federation has also joined as the dialogue partner of IORA. So in that context, basically, if I take you back in 2013, that is 1st November 2013, the economic declaration was passed in the ministerial conference in Perth, Australia, during the chairmanship of Australia. And then in the subsequent year, on 9th October 2014, there was the COM meeting, 14th COM meeting of IORA, in which all the IORA countries adopted blue economy as a new development paradigm to boost jobs and to provide decent living to the people across the Indian Ocean region. And then very quickly, let me tell you the story, how it started. I remember soon after my joining as CIUS, there was the first core group meeting of the maritime security and blue economy related issues in Durban, South Africa on 4th and 5th May 2015. And there basically I spoke about the definition of the blue economy. At that time, basically people were not interested in the definition, but later on, everybody knows that the definition of the blue economy or the ocean economy has become an issue. Although basically, even today, we can say that there is no universal definition of blue economy, but the basic traits of the universality of the blue economy definition has been agreed upon by all the countries across the world, and that is basically sustainability is the basic component of the ocean economy. We have to use the oceanic resources sustainably, whether it is the ocean, seas, lakes, or rivers. All the marine resources has to be used sustainably. So sustainability is the prime issue in the blue economy, and this prime issue or this sustainability in the blue economy has also benefited the land economy, because all over the world, if I go back to 2015, when we accepted the UN Sustainable Development Goal 17, they are 17 in number, 1, 2, 3, 4, and goal number 14 discusses the life below the sea, which is important for us to discuss. So in that context, basically, what is there that in the COM declaration of 2014, because I was listening to the previous speaker, and he basically emphasized about IONS, Indian Ocean Naval Symposium. So para 9 of that declaration focuses on the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, and it says that it must be extended to the maritime safety and security plus disasters risk management, which are two priority areas of IODA. So in that context, basically, it is important that how the Indian Ocean Rim Association talks about the blue economy. And then over the period of time, there have been 3 blue economy conferences. But earlier to that, there have been core group meetings, 3 core group meetings of the blue economy. First was held in South Africa. The second was held in China. The third was held in Mauritius. And basically in India, MEA, Ministry of External Affairs, in collaboration with the RIS, organized the Blue Economy Ocean Dialogue, Blue Economy Dialogue, which was there in Goa and followed in Delhi. So that is basically is the sequence. And in the 3 Blue Economy conferences, which were held under the aegis of IODA, first was on 2nd and 3rd September 2015 in the Republic of Mauritius. The second was on 8th to 10th of May 2017 in Jakarta, Indonesia. And the third was held on 4th and 5th September 2019 in Dhaka, Bangladesh. The present chair of IODA is Bangladesh. And this is also important that till to date, there have been the 2 IODA action plan. The first action plan basically was from 2017 to 2021. And very recently in November 2021, when Bangladesh took over as chair, the second IODA action plan, which ranges from 2022 to 2027, has been accepted by all the IODA countries. And this COM meeting basically links the blue economy to the socio-economic development. So this socio-economic development is very important. But here, if I take the help of Venn diagram, and in 2 Venn diagram, in one I put the maritime security plus ocean governance. In the other diagram, I put the blue economy as a development paradigm. So there is a very close relationship. In fact, they are overlapping. So I won't go into the detail of the debates whether maritime safety and security is important, whether development aspect is important. Both are required. And in that context, basically, I have been listening to the security experts. So the security of the ocean or the ocean governance is very important. And in that context, basically, in IODA, under the first priority area, maritime safety and security, for which Sri Lanka is the coordinator and India is also one of the members, the evolution has taken place. and IORA has moved forward. And the fourth Blue Economy Conference is likely to take place in Sri Lanka. Whether it will happen or not, I'm not sure, because of the, you see, abnormal economic conditions prevailing in Sri Lanka. Now, basically, there is another important thing that in IORA, we set up the working group on blue economy. And the latest thing is that IORA Blue Carbon Hub was also established in 2001, in which Australia played a very big role and India supported the Australian initiative. The another feature of the blue economy in IORA is its close relationship with the dialogue partner. So I won't go into the detail of the MOUs entered by IORA with the dialogue partner, but I do say that if you go through of the proceedings of all the three blue economy conferences, they basically attach more important to the dialogue partners. And among the dialogue partner, Germany was the first, followed by France. France is now the member state, Italy, and then China, then basically the South Korea and Turkey. Basically, all dialogue partners are playing important role in assisting the IORA Secretariat in building capacity and implementing the project. But what is lacking in IORA? That is basically 3M. That is the, out of these 3M, motivation is there. We have been able to establish very strongly, emphatically, that blue economy is very important and blue economy is must for inclusive growth and sustainable development across the Indian Ocean region. That is foregone conclusion. And in fact, I must tell you, when I delivered a talk in the World Bank in 2020, January 2020, World Bank appreciated IORA in very clearly stating that blue economy development paradigm is must for the socio-economic upliftment of the people of the Indian Ocean region. So that is the first important gain. But the second thing is the measurement and monitoring of the blue economy, of the ocean economy. That is absent, you see. I have been emphasizing, I remember in the CSO meeting in 2019 and in the meeting 2020, and even earlier in 2018, I basically emphasized before the member state that there is a need for undertaking a very comprehensive project like IORA Blue Economy. But till now, that step has not been taken, like the European Union Blue Economy. So this basically makes you to talk in brief about the European Union Blue Economy. What is that? As a regional economic organization, I think the attempts, efforts in the measurement and monitoring of the blue economy, you may call it ocean economy, you may call it marine economy, maritime economy, innovative economy, whatever you may call it, there are so many names. So they are the forerunners. I was going through the recent report of the European Commission on the blue economy, which was out on 18th May 2022. So there are very interesting facts, basically, let me tell you. In 2009, the share of the blue economy in the total GVA, gross value added of European Union, was 1.6%. In between, sometime it became 1.4%, 1.3%, but as on today, in 2021, the ratio is 1.5%. So 1.6 to 1.5. Similarly, in terms of the employment generated by the blue economy in the whole of the European Union was 2.3 million. but now basically it is around 2.4 million. And then if you go into the details of the 27 EU countries, the picture is different. So there are countries where the blue economy plays a very important role, that is their share in the GVA, national GVA is 5%. There are second group where it is less than 5%, but there are countries like Germany, France, and all that, where the share of the blue economy is less than the European average, which is around 2%. So that means basically, although the share is 1.6%, but the contribution of the blue economy to the growth of the Europe is tremendous. And it is also important that COVID-19 has affected most of the sectors in the blue economy. Now, question arises, how do we basically try to define the blue economy? I won't go into the traditional definitions of the blue economy, but there are two important things. Blue economy basically is the sum total of marine-based and marine-related activities. And in that, basically, in marine-based activities, we include the marine living resources, marine non-living resources, including marine renewable energy, desalination, maritime transport, and coastal tourism. In marine-based, basically, we include products or production of products and services for ocean or marine-based activities, seafood processing, biotechnology, shipbuilding and repair, port activities, etc. And basically digitalization, etc. All service sector basically included in that. So that is basically is what is I want to say about the blue economy contribution in Europe. But I basically now, giving after this background, shift to what India has been doing with respect to
Professor Hadr, can I remind you that you are running out of time, sir?
Okay, sir. Just let me be. So India basically started the blue economy attempt in 2018. Economic Advisory Council of the Prime Minister, 30th August 2018, 7 working groups were constituted. And in that, basically, the policy of the blue economy has been constituted. And then basically what is important, that India has been boosting the blue economy through bilateral arrangements. In that context, I won't go into the detail. The contract, the MOU with Norway, India-Norway Blue Economy Cooperation, and India-France Blue Economy Cooperation is very vital. And in that context, basically, every aspect has been taken into account. And then basically what is important, that the present macroeconomic conditions of India are very good in providing the enabling conditions for the improvement or for the contribution of the blue economy to the national exchequer. And what I feel, that if the proper measurement and monitoring of the blue economy sectors are taken into account, then India can very well achieve the target of $5 trillion economy in near future, and by 2030 the $10 trillion. So that is basically is my viewpoint. Because time is short, I will be cutting all those things. But what is important, that is basically India has been pursuing this blue economy in an international perspective, and India has its own definition of blue economy. For that purpose, each member state of IORA has its own definition of blue economy. But what is important, that there should be a proper coordination between the security aspect and the development aspect of the blue economy. Then only basically we can provide the rule-based free ocean passage, you see, which is basically also reflected in India's attempt in the Indo-Pacific. So with that, basically I stop here. I welcome questions on any aspect of the blue economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Hadr. I'm sorry I had to intervene because you've gone beyond about 20 minutes.
Okay.
I know you have really defined, and to a lot of our students and a lot of people who are sitting here who are not very familiar with the blue economy. You have really laid out the effort of the whole world, and particularly IRA, and ultimately India's effort in getting to understand blue economy and what is being done and why it is being given importance has been a great sort of learning for all of us here, particularly the students. So thank you for that. May I invite Professor P.V. Rao now to make his presentation, please.
Yeah. Good morning, organizers and all the friends offline and online, and particularly my good friend Commodore Uday Rao, colleague Jairaz Amin, who were nice enough also to invite me about 3 years ago, I think, on a coastal security similar but offline conference at the Mangalore University campus. Rather, since then, only some important developments have taken place, particularly from the point of view of the restructuring of or rather improvement of India's maritime infrastructure, shipping and port infrastructure. My presentation will be focusing more on the modernization of Indian port infrastructure. To some of my younger colleagues, I believe, who are very much present in this webinar since yesterday, let me share with them. Maritime infrastructure is one of the components of the blue economy, far more clearly spelled out by the distinguished scholar who just preceded me, Professor Hadr. But there is much more to be talked to you about maritime infrastructure and ports. The last speaker, or the speaker next to me, equally my very good friend, Dr. Jospal. Sir, very good morning to you. We couldn't meet for the last 3 years offline. But let me tell you, I humbly admit before all this audience that quite a few of my inputs, updated information on India's maritime infrastructure, I learned from you. I borrowed from some of the articles which have been regularly publishing in the Hindu Business Line and also other dailies. I must admit. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is improvement of the port infrastructure, the shipping infrastructure of the country is integral to the entire concept of blue economy. There are a number of components such as optimal utilization of the marine resources, submarine as also surface, living and non-living resources, also the using empowerment of the fishing communities, modernization of fish catching skills, the boating systems, as well as also tying the land resources, hinterland resources to the ocean. In other words, the land-sea gap, which has been there in our country for a long time, that needs to be narrowed down. The land economy, hinterland economy has to be factored into the ocean economy of India, and that can be only dovetailed to the ports and the shipping to abroad. So therefore, my submission here is the topic that I have chosen, Sagarmala, on which I have been working for about past 3 or 4 years, is a part of my wider study, which I am tentatively titling as India's Maritime Power, in which the other issues I have just mentioned to you, like the sustainable utilization of the marine resources, including hydrocarbons, so on and so forth, they also constitute chapters. Sagarmala definitely is one of the most primary and important chapters. In my book, well, it might take 2 or years, couple of years more. That's a different point of view. So here I'm only sharing with you, also learning from some of the learned scholars since yesterday. Like any other student, I have also been very keenly listening and taking down the points made by the other distinguished authorities drawn from the cross section. Navy, Coast Guard, stakeholders, shipping experts, policy experts, academia, and whatnot. So thank you all once again, the organizers. I really take it as an instructive lesson to me by participating in this session. Now let me come to the business about what I am expected to talk to you or share with you rather. Sagarmala is a very beautiful term that has been coined in order to explain India's determined effort to modernize the port infrastructure and the shipping infrastructure around the peninsula. Though many people think that Sagarmala has been just launched only in 2015, which is true. That's not totally true. To the first India government led by Atal Bihari Vajpayee, that was when this Sagarmala initiative had been launched. In its own way, this though very important policy drive had been evolving. Later had been taken over without much changes by the following subsequent UPA government 1 and 2, and the present India government 2, in fact, has put more and more teeth into the policy basket. I'm going to talk to you about some of the important, what you may call the objectives of the Sagarmala project. Actually, it is called Sagarmala project by the official Shipping and Port Ministry's publications. A 6-volume publication and editions have been brought out by the Ministry of Shipping Ports. Now they tooth and nail every minute details, estimates, project DPRs, everything has been given. There are 3 most important objectives which have been defined as the core of the Sagarmala. Now, number 1 is port development. The first and most important objective of the Sagarmala project as defined by the Ministry of Shipping and Ports, which means that all around the country, the existing major ports should be modernized, should be upgraded, but also about 6 to 8 new major ports should be constructed, essentially maybe as green ports, in addition to the existing brown ports. So that we have got a combination of the modernization of the existing major ports and proposals to construct new ports. As the Shipping Ministry report had explained, 6 to 8 have to be constructed. I stand corrected. Those are more well informed than me about the Sagarmala project. They rather correct me. I don't know, to the best of my knowledge, in the last 5 years, any new major port has been constructed in our country. I am not updated on this aspect. But in any case, the work has been taken up on modernization of the ports around our country. So therefore, like modernization of the terminals, the berthing capacity, the capacities of the ports, the supply logistics, terminals, so on and so forth. I can't go into details. So it has been going on. About 300-400 ports have been identified around the country under the Sagarmala. These ports are both major ports as well as non-major ports. Major ports, for the information of the younger students who are here, are essentially directly administered by the central government Ministry of Shipping and Ports. Now it's called Inland Ways also, Waterways. Whereas the second category, non-major ports, are under the states. The state governments and the 9 maritime states that India is having, they may take up modernization of the existing ports. Small ports they are called. They are also called minor ports. They are also called state ports. They are also called non-major ports. And if they are willing, the way Gujarat is doing now and Andhra Pradesh is doing now, and also Kerala state has undertaken, they may also initiate construction of the new ports also. My submission here is therefore, the first object of the Sagarmala project involves construction, improvement, modernization of major ports as well as the minor ports. The second objective of no less important of the Sagarmala project is port industrialization. What does it mean? Though I am not a serious student of economics, but for the sake of this project, I have done a little bit of a reading, if not a serious study. Throughout the planning of our country, independent India's planning, there has not been much effort to industrialize the country around the coast. There have been certain segments like in Mumbai, JNPT, Calcutta around Haldia and Calcutta port, maybe some more in Gujarat and Maharashtra, in Chennai, Ennore, no doubt there are industrial undertakings, companies, factories are there. But where we have got the important coal resources, other mineral resources, in the hinterland areas like Jharkhand or Chhattisgarh or Bihar or Raniganj, how they could be transported without much of a hitch and delay. Okay? What you call last mile connectivity from hinterland industrialized areas, mining areas, resource rich areas of this vast country to the post, the eastern coast or western coast. My knowledge is there has not been much concerted effort to tie countries' industrialization projects to the ports and shipping in a very effective manner. Now, Sagarmala proposes rather ambitiously that there should be industrial undertakings around the coast, and for this purpose, coastal economic zones should be created. Special economic zones existing or non-existing should be promoted. State governments should be encouraged, if possible, subsidized to have their own local industries around the coast. So therefore, port industrialization, therefore, is the whole argument here is okay, even the country like India with 7,500 kilometers of peninsula, let us say hypothetically, is having the best of the ports, best of the shipping lines, shipping infrastructure, but they would be of no use unless the country has got enough of goods to export abroad. We all know that about more than 90% of Indian trade is conducted by sea. 70% of this cargo is in terms of volume or also is sailed and navigated by sea. Of course, but the country is not having enough of industrial production manufacturing centers around the coast. That gap, that policy chasm which is existing, Sagarmala wants to fill it up. So port industrialization is one of the most important and the second objective of Sagarmala project. I believe already, if not many, but quite a bit of projects have been undertaken around the major ports and also around the non-major ports, that means smaller ports also. And particularly here, what type of industry should be located or developed around the Indian ports or Indian port? Certain manufacturing units, export-oriented products like leather, textiles, machinery operations, oil refinery, petrochemicals, and there's a whole long list of these export-oriented or exim-operated products are there. Priority should be given in order to develop that kind of industrial units around the port and particularly around the ports. So that's the reason today, for example, we have in Nelluru, a very important port in Andhra Pradesh, special economic zone or leather. In Visakhapatnam, very well-known industrial hub and also maritime hub, there is an exclusive special economic zone for pharmacy and drug production. And we have many such on the western coast also. Now, agro industries is another sector that is being slowly developed. Let's not forget, India is slowly emerging as an important exporter of agro products, including floriculture, apart from the dry fruits, spices from Kerala, soil, and so forth. So the second objective is very much in line, but I don't think we'll be able to really reach out to a concrete conclusion about how much progress it has been made, considering the fact that Sagarmala has been given effective teeth, a more concrete policy direction from 2015 onwards. I'll then take you to the third objective of Sagarmala project. This is called connectivity. Something what I already mentioned to you a couple of minutes ago. Several ports in our country are connected by roads and rails. In general, though the rail transport system has made impressive progress in carrying far off hinterland products, goods, minerals like iron ore, say for example from Western Ghats, iron ore regularly used to be carried into the Mangalore port. I don't know how far it's true now, but I have seen myself actually when I had been to Western Ghats. So to certain extent, over the last 75 years of our planning effort, our Indian railway system has been able to make a considerable progress, contribution to the port hinterland connectivity. But the point here is, today this rail transport system needs to be modernized. They have to be made very fast. There have to be what you call dedicated freight corridors, only not passenger lines or trains, but only cargo goods trains alone should be able to run at high speed. Already, I believe 2 dedicated freight corridors are very much under progress. One between Delhi and Mumbai, and I think another one between Mumbai and Ahmedabad, I suppose. And more dedicated freight corridors are on the anvil. Secondly, roads we know, but I believe you know, I know pretty well. In a manner of speaking, Indian roads have been in very bad shape. Only of late, Bharatmala has been able to add a little bit of modernity and efficiency to road transport system. But these two, my friends, have been the very well-known connectivity, what you call channels, road and rail transport system. But under Sagarmala, Government of India has realized there are certain transportation potentialities which need to be given a new fillip and more policy encouragement. What are they? Government of India really wants to make use of the long and very large riverways in our country. Be it either Ganga, Godavari, Kaveri, or Narmada. They all are, though not really very navigable, but they can be transformed into very good navigable river waterways, and efforts are underway. Sagarmala had in fact drawn a number of projects where it is called inland river water projects. That's the reason why about a couple of years ago, the very official name of the Ministry of Shipping and Ports has been changed as Ministry of Shipping, Ports, and what you call the inland waterways. So developing inland water, already I believe efforts are there. For example, I am told my news is only media source, that between Cochin and Kottayam, inland waterway transportation is being tried. And between Benares, the Prime Minister's constituency, via Ganga River up to Haldia in Calcutta, I believe already I have seen the Prime Minister inaugurating this inland river water transportation system. What I'm trying to say is, so inland river water transportation is the third mode of connectivity to be connected to the Indian ports. And the last connectivity proposed under Sagarmala is very interesting, but I must admit, since I'm not a student of shipping or ports, I'm just only a student of international relations, is what is called coastal shipping. I believe some people also call it a small shipping. Around the long, long coast of India, east to west, west to west, around the coastlines, many of us as tourists, as whatever that we have seen, some of the local goods services, including bicycles, motorbikes, sand, rice, cattle, etc., are being carried on by these local boats. Sagarmala has recognized there is a greater potentiality to give more substantial encouragement for the modernization of this coastal shipping. Already, I believe some projects have been launched, and some of those which have been traditionally either in Kerala or Gujarat or Andhra Pradesh, they are, I believe, maybe proposed to be more modernized. So the third objective, in the manner of speaking, friends, I may sum up is rail, road, inland waterways, lastly, coastal shipping, or small shipping, whatever you may call them. These are the designated ones. There's a fifth one is a POL, that means constructing of pipelines in order to send from ports into the hinterland areas oil and what you call petrol, crude oil, so on and so forth. This is the third one. The last one, the last objective prioritized also by the Sagarmala project is coastal development. Quite a few of us think, and not very wrongly, coastal development means only construction of the new tourist centers, resorts, or buildings, so on and so forth. Not exactly so. Development of the coastal communities, empowering the fishing communities, educating them, imparting new fishing and other vocational skills to them. Yesterday, some of my senior naval colleagues who have shared very well with us, the fishermen in the naval language is called, they are eyes and ears of maritime security. I remember very well Admiral Arun Prakash mentioned this in his book, The Crow's Nest, where he mentioned the coastal fishing communities are really helpful in trying to identify some of the unlawful or suspicious elements, which are many around the two coasts of India. Now, these are the fishermen which the government of India had now spotted and trying to give and put more money in order to see. I had visited some of them, some of the ports, under the fourth objective of coastal development, new fishing harbors are being constructed. My information is already 5 fishing harbors have been constructed. I visited only the one in Chennai, where huge activity is going on. I believe there's another one in Visakhapatnam also. I can't go into details, only in the manner of giving examples to substantiate these designated policy objectives and priorities. Sagarmala, I'm trying to mention to you some of them. So,
Professor
friends,
Rao, you are running out of time, sir.
yes, Xavier. How much grace time you can bestow on me, sir?
You have gone past the time, sir.
Okay, quickly, can you give half the minute, sir?
Yes, sir, most certainly.
Okay, there's a lot to say, but I know that time is always the Well, I may say lastly, more recently, Government of India had introduced, in order to give further fillip to port infrastructure development, Indian major port bill that in fact is a very radical one, where the private sector is being encouraged and where the current Indian public owned ports, their very nomenclature is changed. They won't be called anymore as trust ports, but they will be called only landlord ports, which means all the port operations, transactions, everything would be privatized. Of course, there are a lot of controversies going, particularly state governments are questioning the very propriety, constitutional validity of the major port bill of 2021. Lok Sabha already passed, Rajya Sabha yet to be passed. Friends, I'm sorry, these are only extremely few points in an otherwise prepared note I wanted to share with you. One last to request, Mr. Chair, with your permission, sir. Very good presentations have been made since yesterday. If only the organizers can think of, my friend Uday Rao and colleague Jairat can think of, why not this be published into a book also? I'll be contributing and making my own contributions also. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, friends, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Professor Rao. I think that was a fairly very exhaustive and very enlightening talk, particularly for the students. I have nothing more to add, but let me just flag that there is an Inland Waterways Authority in place for last about 10 years, and they are the ones who are looking after the riverine transportation. And Professor Rao mentioned some of it. There are more places which have been sort of connected. And I was for a little while I was associated with them. But if you type ICWA, this sorry, the Inland Waterways Authority on the Google, you will get full details as to what is the latest status. As you know that there are minor ports and major ports. There is a move to create more number of major ports now, possibly 3 more or 9 more. I forget the figure, and modernization of the privately owned ports. Yes, there is a problem of constitutional provision, and that has always been our problem, that states and center pulling into different directions. Particularly in last 5-6 years, any central government development schemes have been by delayed or possibly negated by the state government. And that is our country, and that is what you have to make sure that when you grow up, these kind of hurdles don't come in the progress of our country. So thank you, Dr. Rao. May I invite Dr. Jose Paul to take the podium, the virtual podium, and make his presentation.
Admiral Sinha, Commodore Uday Rao, and other delegates. I am indeed thankful to you for the kind invitation to participate in this national conference on India's maritime security. The subject on which I am supposed to speak is enhancing efficiency of major ports. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're very much audible. You are audible.
Am I visible?
You are
Yes, sir.
visible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you are visible, sir.
Okay. I just want to, before I start the presentation, PowerPoint presentation, I just wanted to make some introductory remarks. 95% of India's trade by volume passes through seaports, and 68% by value passes through seaports. This will clearly indicate the importance of ports in the national economic development of the country. Enhancing efficiency of ports would ultimately result in lower landing costs for imports and lower shipping costs for our exporters. In 2021-22, India's export touched an all-time high of 410 billion US dollars. And the percentage increase was 44%, unheard of in the past. And in the first month of this financial year, April, it is now 30%. And there is an ambitious target that by 2030, India wants to increase its exports to value of exports to US dollars 1,500 billion. Now let me come to my presentation. Do you want me to run the presentation from my side, or is there anyone to run it for me?
The both are possible,
Yeah.
but if you run from our side, you will not be able to control the slides.
Okay.
So you can just upload it.
Ah.
If you have a problem, we will upload from our side.
Okay. Okay. Yes. This is a map showing the location of India's major ports. A general overview. Major ports on the west coast. Deen Dayal Port, that is Kandla Port in Gujarat. Mumbai Port Authority in Maharashtra. Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority, again New Bombay in Maharashtra. Marmagawa Port Authority in Goa. New Mangalore Port Authority in Karnataka. Cochin Port Authority in Kerala. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Port Authority, that is the Calcutta Port, West Bengal. Paradip Port Authority, Orissa. Visakhapatnam Port Authority, Andhra Pradesh. Ennur Port Limited, Tamil Nadu. Chennai Port Authority, Tamil Nadu. Geo Chidambarar Port Authority, Tuticorin, Tamil Nadu. Major ports, traffic handled and port capacity. All the 12 major ports in the country have handled 720 million tons in the year 2021, 2022, recording an annual increase of 7%. Capacity of Indian major ports is estimated at 1,600 million tons in 2021-22, and the capacity utilization is only at 45%. There are about 200 non-major ports in India, and the total traffic handled at all the non-major ports in 2021-22 is estimated at 600 million tons. The capacity of all non-major ports is assessed at 1,020 million tons, and the capacity utilization is 59%. For the benefit of our students, I would like to explain the difference between a major port and a non-major. People generally believe that ports which handle higher volumes of cargo will be categorized as major ports, and ports which handle lower amount of cargo to be categorized as non-major ports, which is wrong. A major port simply means that it is a port to be controlled by the central government. It has nothing to do with the traffic or port facilities existing or to be created in that port. Moreover, when you declare a port as a major port, the administration, management, and operation of that port comes under the control of the central government. When it is a non-major port, it comes under the jurisdiction of the concerned maritime state government. to put this in a clear note, the port in Gujarat, Mundra, which has handled 127 million tons last year, is still a non-major. A port which is handling just 34 million tons, that is Cochin port, is a major port. So the distinction is mainly to indicate who controls that port. Major ports means controlled by the central government. Non-major ports to be controlled by the state government. Share of traffic handled by major ports and non-major ports. Total traffic handled at all Indian ports 21-22 estimated at 1,320 million tons. And the share of the major port comes to 55%, while that of non-major ports comes to 45%. Major ports which have crossed annual cargo traffic exceeding 100 million tons, only 2 major ports in India have recorded annual traffic exceeding 100 million tons. These ports are Deen Dayal Port in Kandla, handled 127 million tons, and Paradeep Port handled 116 million tons in the year 21-22. Traffic projection by 2030, what is likely to be the position by 2030? 3 major ports in India are projected to handle 300 million tons by 2030. They are Deen Dayal Port in Kandla, Paradeep in Orissa. These two are existing ports which have the highest amount of cargo handled. But the third one is a new port to be developed at Vrindavan in Maharashtra in a greenfield situation. Now we have mentioned about enhancing the efficiency of major ports. What do we mean by efficiency? What is the definition of efficiency? How do you determine efficiency? How do you measure efficiency? Economic efficiency is defined as the relationship of inputs to outputs, minimizing inputs for a specific output or maximizing output for a given input. That is the definition of efficiency. Now, there are physical efficiency, there is economic efficiency, there is managerial efficiency, there is operational efficiency. Let us try to examine each. All 12 major seaports in India have drawn up expansion and modernization plans to increase cargo traffic to be able to handle a projected traffic of 2,200 to 2,600 million tons per annum by 2030. It is important to note that 67% of present port capacity of 1,600 million tons was added during the last 5 years. Operational efficiency. A port's performance is judged based on the speed and efficiency of shipping and cargo handling operations. What are they? Average vessel turnaround time for container ship in India is estimated at 32 hours, which is on the high side. The target is to bring it down to 20 hours by 2030 on par with international standards. Average container dwell time at major ports is estimated at 79 hours. What is dwell time? The time a container after its discharge remains in the port without being cleared. And that period is called the dwell time. And now in India, it is 79 hours. And the target is to bring it down to 40 hours. 3. Average ship daily output at major ports is 16,500 tons now, which is to be increased to 30,000 tons by 2030. Economic efficiency. Financial performance of Indian major ports suggests that the total income of all major ports is estimated at 16,419 crores and an expenditure of rupees 12,293 crores with a net surplus of 4,126 crores in 2020-21. Now, all the major ports in India are making profit except the port of Narmagova, where about 80% of the cargo was iron ore. And in view of the restrictions placed by Supreme Court order, mining was seriously affected. And therefore, there was a drastic fall in the total traffic handled at that port. And that resulted in the financial position of that port. The operating ratio of major ports is 53%, which is on the high side. It has to come down. Per ton handling cost at major ports is rupees 116. The cost per employee at major ports is estimated at 12.76 lakhs. All these ratios, if you compare with the ports in the private sector, they are much lower because their strength of employees is much less. Managerial efficiency. The strength of manpower at all Indian major ports in 2000-2001 stood at 80,867 employees 20 years ago. The strength has drastically come down to 23,193 in the year 2020-21. It is likely to come down further. A major reform introduced at Indian major ports to improve port efficiency significantly was to allow public-private participation in cargo handling. Currently, 54% of all cargo handled at major ports is organized by the private sector under the public-private partnership model or by other operators, while the target is to allow 85% by 2030. Regulatory reforms to enhance port efficiency. Regulatory reforms by amending cabotage laws by which foreign shipping companies are allowed to carry cargo from one Indian port to another, and thereby the percentage of Indian cargo transshipment handled by Indian ports is to be raised from 25% now to 75%. Another important development, the Major Ports Act 1963 has been repealed, and in its place, a new act has come into being, Major Port Authorities Act 2021, with effect from 3rd November 2021, constituting port authorities at Indian major ports, giving wider administrative, managerial, and financial powers. A major policy decision is to move the major ports towards a landlord model by which major port authorities will confine themselves to regulatory and statutory powers, leaving the entire area of cargo handling and ship operations to be left to public-private partners, creating an enabling environment to invite private sector to a greater degree to develop world-class port infrastructure. reduced logistic costs, and enabled multi-modal shift in cargo operations. Introducing the government has now come up with very ambitious programs, introducing model concession agreements for PPP operators by extending the lease period from 30 years to 50 years and even 99 years, based on the level of investment to be made in the brownfield as well as in the greenfield locations. To increase the draft at major ports to 16 meters to permit large container vessels to be berthed and 18 meters for large bulk carriers to be accommodated. To develop Vizhinjam and Cochin as major transshipment ports in view of their strategic location close to the international shipping route. To enhance technology penetration, input management, operations, and documentation, and introduction of digitalization to improve operational and managerial efficiency. To promote the concept of developing smart ports to improve the ease of doing business. And last, building safe, sustainable, and green maritime sector. Determined efforts are put in to increase the share of renewable energy at major ports from the present level of 6% to 60% by 2030. I think that is the end of the presentation. And I am happy to note that I have not exceeded the limit which had been prescribed by you. So, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. I think a lot of appreciation and credit goes to you for sticking to time and not exceeding time, but you have made a very, very important sort of presentation to the, particularly to the students and many of us who are not very familiar with the kind of development which is taking place. And the modification to the Major Port Act, which you mentioned, that is a very big development as far as the maritime sector is concerned. It only goes to show that how little attention was being paid for the development of increasing the efficiency of the ports, in spite of all the port chairmen bringing it out in their meetings to the government of India on so many occasions, having been sort of involved willy-nilly in 2-3 sort of stations in Bombay, in Goa, where one of the naval senior officers is always part of the trust board, and we get to know when we see the the minutes of meeting. So these are all important developments which the students must take note and see that where do we go from here, because you are the ones who are reading maritime affairs, and it is not only maritime security, it is not only China, Pakistan which actually drive the maritime prowess of our country. And as I mentioned right in the beginning, that it is important to understand as to what is a maritime power. When we say maritime power, then you look at this infrastructure, and these three subjects which have been covered, they are at the bottom of the development of maritime sector of our country, to give you a long-term utilization, sustainable utilization of the maritime resources for a very long time. And of course, there is much more to be covered, which cannot be covered in this little time. You have seabed mining, you have the fishing, you have the marine life below the surface of sea. All those things have to be taken care of, and security of those things actually come into being. So thank you, all three, my very distinguished colleagues. Let me see if there are any questions. I don't see any questions in this chat box. Is there any question in your chat boxes? I don't see here any of the speakers, distinguished speakers, have any questions. Okay, if there are none, that let me use my prerogative as the chair to.
Sir, just sorry for interruption.
Yeah.
There is one question in the chat box.
Yeah.
That is, by Vinith Krishnan. That is, I wanted to ask what is the difference between maritime security and maritime domain awareness? Because the paper dealt with such a wide gamut of areas that has thrown open quite a lot of doubts. One question. Maybe it is to Dr. Ravi. And the other question from the same person is that what are the main technologies used in strengthening MDA, particularly India's capabilities?
Is this for this session only?
Yeah, this session, I think it's, I think it's for this session.
Because
Or
this
maybe
is
for the earlier session. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe it's for earlier
it was
session.
for earlier. I think it was addressed already.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
it's for earlier session. Yeah.
None of them are for this session. But all I can say, being a practitioner, all I can say is that the maritime domain awareness is a necessity for ensuring maritime security. MDA is one of the ingredients for taking the security forward. And as far as the technologies are concerned, the basically you're picking up the vessels, the seagoing vessels oversea by various means. You can have visual, you can have from by ships, you can have it by submarines, you can have by satellites, you can have with aircraft. All of them actually feed into one network, and then it is transmitted to all the concerned people in this whole vast sea. And if you see that in the Quad meeting, they have come to conclusion that they have come to agreement that there will be Indo-Pacific MDA, the Indo-Pacific Maritime Domain Awareness. So the Indian Ocean, South China Sea, and the Pacific Ocean, they all have their fusion centers. It was mentioned by one of our esteemed speakers a little while ago. They will actually be networked together so that in the entire Indo-Pacific, all the warships and all the centers have complete picture of Indo-Pacific, and that's a very, very big picture. Just to give you one offhand example, on Indian coast itself, at any one time there are 50,000 contacts. In the Indian Ocean, there are some 130,000 contacts. Merchant ships going up and down. So these are very large figures, and therefore, we should not get caught by this overload of information also. So, intelligence will count a lot. So I will stop here and hand over. Thank you very much to all my very distinguished colleagues on this panel. My sort of ovation by clapping myself, and those who want to clap, please clap. This has been a very, very fruitful and very educative and very informative session. I hand over back to the organizers to control the timing from here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your enlightening and the session which you led in such a way, comparing almost all the enlightened, eminent scholars, and compiled and give the concluding remark very meaningfully. It has been touched to the hearts of the students and participants and those who are actually observing and viewing this entire session. So thank you so much on behalf of Mag University and ICSB Bangalore. Thank you so much, sir. And once again, I request almost all the participants kindly fill the online feedback forms and give the suggestions, and please, give your feedback. And immediately we will be moving towards next plenary session 6, maritime management, that will be sharp at 2 o'clock. I kindly request all the participants, delegates, and participants and paper presenters be sharp at 2 o'clock. Thank you so much. Until then, goodbye. Thank you.
Jai Hind. Thank you.